right, today I have my friend Sky Trease with me today. Sky is a badass in her own right, and this is the new format for From the Ashes. I will be talking to women of all different walks of life who have been through their own journeys and struggles, and just kind of share those with you and get their stories out. So welcome, Sky.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about you.
A little bit about me.
Where are you at right now?
Right now. So I am a mom of 5. I'm divorced from a long-term marriage. I was married for a long time.
Yeah.
So this is kind of my first time in life, my first couple of years in life being on my own. I got married when I was 18, like as fast as I legally could. So it's kind of my first time adulting on my own. I'm a yoga instructor. I do bodybuilding competitions. I compete in. I just lost the sound for
You're
a
good.
second. Okay. Okay, there we go. I compete in bikini competitions. So I've got another one coming up in May. Yeah, that's a rundown. I'm from northern Minnesota, in the middle of the desert now.
In the middle of nowhere.
In the middle of nowhere.
Small town.
Yes.
And how long have you been here in this small town?
On and off since I was 17. So
okay.
yeah, a long time.
You guys had all the babies here and everything.
Yeah, everything. I was in California for a little while.
Okay.
But then came back here.
Okay.
So
I've loved watching your journey. Like, we didn't really know each other, but I knew of you, and I always felt like you were kind of like me, like quiet, and you just kind of kept to yourself, and you just raised your babies, and then all of a sudden, like you just blossomed and came out of nowhere, and you were doing all these things and pushing yourself, and I love, like, what was your trigger to start that journey, that part of your life?
I think life is really wild in the way that it builds step by step, and then sometimes you can look at someone's life after 15 years of building something and you're like, oh, all this stuff, but it actually just was like one day at a time. So I would say my younger life was really chaotic, like super chaotic. And I went on to have my first son really, really young. And when I had him, that would absolutely be a turning point in my life of like, I had something to live for. I had someone to live for. Like every part of me came alive. I was like, oh, you're the reason I'm here. And so that was just this moment of like, I want to give him more than what I had.
Okay.
And so I just threw myself into motherhood. And I really think learning to live so sacrificially like that you do as a mom, like I think that's just such a powerful place to be. And during when you're doing it, it's just so not glamorous because it's sleepless nights and it's diapers and it's blowouts and it's chauffeuring children all around, but like you really are becoming someone in the trenches of motherhood. And so I would say that was part of it. And then in my quest to give my son the life I wanted him to have, and I went on to have obviously a pile more of kids, like a whole little
your little tribe.
Yeah, soccer team.
Yeah.
I really wanted to become a healthy person. I wanted to have a healthy relationship with him. I wanted to give him a healthy foundation. And so I just started getting some healing in my own life, just as a byproduct of something bigger than myself to live for, Yeah. So I started pursuing that. So I think by the time my kids were kind of coming out of the phase of not needing me like they used to, now they brush their own teeth and they literally tuck me into bed now. Yeah. So once we kind of hit that spot in life, I had already this kind of momentum of just growing and wanting to do more and wanting health around me. Like I genuinely want to be a happy person. I'm not interested in looking like a specific thing. I'm not interested in presenting like a certain thing. I'm not after a specific lifestyle. I want inner peace. I want happiness. I want healthy relationships. Yeah. And so I think that's kind of where I find myself right now, is still on that journey. Like it looks really different than when I had 3-year-olds, But and I spend so much time at home kind of in a shell. Like I started to really, this is going to be kind of a stretch if you don't know all my younger story, but it was a really brave thing for me to do, to stop engaging in some of the really unhealthy behaviors that came from my childhood. And so sometimes we don't give people credit for the bravery they're displaying, because we live on the scale of like, oh, really brave acts are like way over here, like, I don't know, bungee jumping or getting on a stage in front of 10,000 people and that kind of stuff. And sometimes because of where someone's at, the bravest thing they can do is to break a pattern, or just something really quiet, like choose to be alone. You know what I mean? Like there's no applause. Excuse me, there's no applause, there's not an audience for it, but it's a really brave, like life-changing moment for that person. And so I think I've always had a really high value since then for doing brave things, like doing things that keep me vulnerable.
Yeah, and you are really good at just doing things that nobody else would really want to do, and you're really good with your words too.
Thank you.
I wish you would write a book. Like, I know
it's on my list. Yeah.
You're just very good with your words. How did that come about?
So when I was younger, I had a dad that read to me. Like, I've always been a reader. So I was actually horrible in school, hated school, dropped out of school. Did not attend much school, was very feral as a child.
That's your word. I love it.
Yeah, I never quite fit in, but I read all the time, and I've always had like a deep love for poetry. And I think, as much as we like to think that we're logical beings having, this physical experience, I really believe we're first emotional and spiritual beings having a physical experience. Right. And so I just have such a high value for words, and finding words that, like, once you can assign a word to a feeling, to an emotion, you can be seen in a way that you're not able to be seen if there's not words for that. So as long as I have this inner thing going on, but no one else can experience it with me, I'm not able to give that to someone, it kind of drives me in a way that I don't understand. Like, it has a control over me I don't understand. And when I'm able to assign a word to it, to express it, to bring it to the world, to be seen, there's a freedom that happens in that. And I think I've just always had a really deep love for poetry. I love people that are crafters of words. I feel the same way about music. I just am not super musically inclined. So music, artwork, poetry, anything that takes I feel like those are just the things in life that transcend our day-to-day life and connect us
to each other.
Right. And then they express things that words fall short of, that day-to-day life falls short of, but are such deep, powerful experiences we have. So I'm a huge fan of, sit in the discomfort of anything going on inside of you until you can find the right words for it. Like, don't just throw, however you want to put that, like, don't just throw something at it and be like, oh, I'm just angry, oh, I'm just frustrated. Like, sit in the discomfort of, I'm not sure where I am right now. Like, I'm not sure what's going on inside of me, but I'm going to sit with it. I'm going to look at it. I'm going to hold it. And then I'm going to find the right word. And then I can actually move forward from that place.
I love that. You use journaling for that too, right?
Yeah, I journal almost every single morning. And I think with journaling too, it's not just writing, which I obviously love writing. I love words. But it gives physical expression to emotion. And I think that's something we absolutely have to do. You find it in nature.
Right.
Like, you find it in all these different places. Like, a deer gets chased by wolves. If it does escape, it'll actually have a moment where it, like, lays down and physically starts shaking.
Oh, wow.
And it gives this, like, physical expression to the anxiety that just took place in it. Right. And so often our brains are in these triggered states because we live in this really unnaturally stressful world. So, like, you get an email at work and it's your boss being a jerk to you or whatever, you know what I mean? And it stresses you out. You have this anxiety reaction, all these chemicals flood your brain. And our brain doesn't know the difference between, like, hey, that's just an email. Yeah. And there's an actual...
I'm running for my life.
Yeah, there's a bear chasing me. And so, like, so many of us are just constantly running from bears that don't exist. Yeah. You know what I mean? And we don't even realize it. And then we don't slow down to take time to physically release some of that anxiety, release some of that you know, whatever it is, that trauma that's
it
inside
just gets
of us.
like locked inside.
Yeah.
Whether that's and I think that's how a lot of, and we've talked about this a lot, of how a lot of illnesses show up.
Yeah.
And oh my god, just storing, I hate the word trauma, but it really is trauma. Like it traumatizes your body, traumatizes yourself physically.
There's a really great book called The Body Remembers. Well, there's a couple different books, but there's one called The Body Keeps the Score. And it's just basically a really long way of saying, like, the body remembers what the mind forgets.
Yeah.
And you need to release that somehow or another, you know?
Right. And what was the best way for you to release that kind of stuff? Like, what have you found?
Yeah, so journaling. Earlier, movement. I'm a huge movement person. So earlier today I had the gym all to myself, and I went in there, and you get a song that's just, I don't know, for whatever reason you're like, this is like my dopamine hit right now, and I'll just listen to it
over and over.
And so I like turned on that song as loud as I could, in between sets I just like screamed the lyrics. And like I know, like, but you know what, it works. I came out of the gym and I was a happy, relaxed, mellow person. So yeah, I think yoga is a big one for me. Like, it's really taught me how to regulate my nervous system, and that I can control it. Like my brain, I had a really wild childhood, and so my brain wasn't always taught how to regulate itself. And so just learning that, you know, sometimes you have to regulate from the bottom up to the top. And so I do that through breath work. I do that through sitting still, through releasing tension in all my muscles. And then it signals to my brain, like, hey, we're okay. Rather than trying to get my brain, that is a little hijacked at different times, you know, to get my body to relax. I can purposely relax my body and instead send that signal from the bottom up, rather than
interesting.
Relying from the top down. Because sometimes the top down doesn't always do its job right.
I can't convince your body of everything, huh?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Now, weightlifting, how long has that been a thing for you?
Probably 6 years now, I would say, that I've been weight training.
Okay.
Not, I wasn't always doing, like, I got really into kettlebells when I first started with weight training.
Oh, nice.
And so I went from running, like, I was an avid runner. So I, like, ran until my knees were not right anymore.
You don't do that until you're like 35. You're like, okay.
My chiropractor was begging me to stop. So, like, I don't know who I am without that.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right.
So I was an avid runner for a long time. And then about 6 years ago, I started switching to kettlebells. And I just immediately saw such a difference in my body. And then it was like just a slippery slope from there. Within a year, I was like buying barbells and all sorts of plates and
and lifting. And I mean, you are already fit as hell, but getting on stage is a whole different mind game.
Yeah.
And you understand that, and you've killed it on the stage too. Yeah. Tell me what that kind of experience was for you.
So I love it for two reasons. One, I love it because it gives me a goal. Like, it gives me a healthy goal to just geek out. Like, this is what I'm doing right now. I'm drinking my water. I'm going to bed. You know, like, I'm crossing my T's. I'm dotting my I's. I'm weighing my proteins. And I love to get hyper fixated on something. It's a bonus when it's something healthy. So
it could be so much worse.
There's lots of other options out there. So, like, I love geeking out on something like that. It's something I enjoy doing, fitness. And then also it keeps me vulnerable. And again, I have a huge value for vulnerability. Like, you know, like, from the spray tan to getting out there, and like just the mindset you have to constantly keep, like, because you're not in competition with you. Like, I can show up in the best physique, you know, and I really believe I will this year, actually. Like, I'm really pleased with where I'm at. This is the best package I will have ever brought to the stage. Right. And I could totally wash out because I'm not in competition with myself. I'm in competition to, like, who's ever standing next to me. And they could just genetically be better off than me.
That's really what it is. And a lot of it is also drugs. Like, like, I'm on testosterone, but some of these girls are on, like, Anavar and all this other stuff that really, you can't compete with that naturally.
And I don't want, like, that's why I'm, like, happy just kind of sticking with the more regional shows, because I'm, like, I'm not,
Those big ones, dude. I follow the girls on the Olympia, and I'm like, I could never step on stage close to where they are.
No,
like, blows my mind.
And I don't want to. This is just enough geeking out for me, and this is all consuming, so I can't understand.
Oh, it would be your life.
Yeah.
You would not be able to have a job or kids or anything.
Nothing. And so this is just the right size for me right now, where I'm at in life. But the level of vulnerability and keeping your own ego in check that you have to constantly be operating at, like you show up to the hotel and because they know like the venues are normally at these bigger hotels, like in Las Vegas and stuff, and so you instantly want to size up everybody in the room.
It's the worst.
You're like,
you show up, you're like, I look so good.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just kill it, and then you're like, oh shit.
Yeah, I know. Like, damn it.
These girls, like, they're not even tanned yet, and they're just bulk.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll literally start like trying to weed people out because they divide us up, by height.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to like, you're too short, you're too short. You're like, oh shit. And so just like keeping my ego in check of like, no, like I can be here to support her, and I could make a friend, like I could be excited for all of us, like just that kind of a thing. And then put on a swimsuit and go walk out.
That is a little less than a swimsuit.
Yeah, like a couple eye patches and some string, and there's lots of glitter. And like honestly, it's so far from glamorous when you're a part of it.
Yeah.
Like you're sticky and gross and spray tan covered.
And starving.
And
dehydrated.
Oh my gosh. Like, and it's humbling. The whole thing is humbling. Yeah. No one told me. This is too much information. No one told me not to sit my bottom all the way down on the toilet seat once I'm right down. And so I'm literally like moments from getting on stage in one of the little booths trying to eat my pump up meal with a room full of competitors behind me as I'm bent over and they're buffing out my backside. And then you run out on stage and you have to be composed and you have to, seem like, confident.
Right as you get to the stage. Okay, and smile and pose and
it is a lot. So I like anything that keeps you vulnerable like that. Like, and you can fail. You can do all that work and totally wash out. And I think constantly doing things that cause us to feel vulnerable, to cause us to risk failure, like doing those things, those are really important things to always have in your life in some form or another.
Right.
So it doesn't have to be bodybuilding. It can be. Sometimes I just write stuff and post it on Facebook because
that's vulnerable.
Yeah, because I'm like, some people will like this, some people will reject it, and but this is me exposing myself to the world and valuing what I have to bring.
Along with that, though, you and I are kind of on the same page with posting workouts, and sometimes we're posting our posing things, like I just saw you recently, and your progress. Yeah. Well, that also welcomes a lot of unwelcome
different kinds of attention.
Yeah, from like single men, married men, all of that. How do you handle that?
Yeah, so
I feel like you're probably a lot wiser. I'm super nice. I'm just like, okay, I think that everybody's all great and just being friendly, and it's not that way.
I have dealt with that. Like, I think I've handled it differently in different seasons of my life. So I think, I'm single. Like, if someone wants to flirt with me or shoot their shot, they're more than welcome.
Good luck.
I'm single and uninterested, though, so I should put that whole string that I'm kind of mean right now, so I mean, it's proceed at your own risk. But, when I was in a relationship, I would handle things differently.
Right.
The way I've really started to look at it now is, I know you saw, like, recently I posted this thing, like, hey, if you're in a relationship, because honestly, if you're single and you want to shoot your shot, that's fine.
You're not doing anything wrong.
No, exactly. Right. Like, hey, be vulnerable and take a risk. You know what I mean? Right. Shoot your shot. Like, it might not go anywhere, but that's part of the whole thing. So that doesn't offend me too much. Like, I've only had a couple guys be pretty vulgar about it, and I just block them. Like, I don't even have a conversation. I'm like, I'm
not
good.
Even gonna deal with that.
No, like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
For as weird as I can be, I actually consider myself a lady. I'm good.
I might be feral, but I'm feminine.
Exactly. Feral and feminine. I read poetry. Like, I cry when I need to. Like, I don't want to be a part of that. Yeah. But anyways, so I'm a big fan of the block. Just, we don't have to have a conversation. And then I did post, like, if you're married in a relationship, and you come at me like that.
Yeah.
Like if you say something, I'm officially hitting a point where I'm going to screenshot what you say and I'm going to send it to your significant other. And like, I know, I'm just like, well, so I actually, I've had infidelity has affected my life in a huge way.
Right.
I someday would really like to have someone, and I'm not 22 dating anymore. The dating pool isn't this huge
Oh
one.
my God, it's
and then I'm in
it's hard.
it is hard. And then I'm in Round Mountain, and so it's just a really small community.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to keep this hope in me alive that there's good men out there and that there's good people. Like, I don't want to be bitter, you know?
Right.
And when married people would come to me with that kind of tone to them, it would feed that voice in me of like, this is all men.
Yeah.
This is all men. Like, why don't I want to be in a relationship? Because
That's
of
why,
you guys.
all the men, you think, quote unquote, all
Exactly.
the men are that way.
And so it wasn't even like, I'm not trying to even call anybody out. I'm trying to protect myself at this point because I don't want to die alone. I would like to have a person.
There are good men out there. You literally have to weed and filter through them all.
Yeah. And I'm already on a journey of learning how to do that.
Yeah.
And so, like, that's hard enough. I don't need this undertone constantly of like married dudes just acting like it's totally cool to engage with me like that. And then, like that's, I could go on about this. I hate it the most because you're not even, I feel like we've created such like a Weasley place for people to hang out with stuff like that. Like, I know this sounds awful, like, and I know it does. Like, be a man and have an affair, okay? And listen, I'm not condoning infidelity, but I'm just saying, like, back
if
in
you're gonna do it,
yeah,
you might as well just do it.
Commit. You are trying to get the most for the cheapest,
God,
and I hate that. Like, you won't risk for me, and you won't be honest to her. So, like, no thanks, I'm good.
They're just tiptoeing in
yeah,
between.
Like, you want to stroke your ego with me.
Right.
Like, but you don't want to lose the safety of her.
Right.
I probably like her better, so stop talking to me.
I think that's important for us women to be on the same team.
Yeah.
Like, guys say bros before hoes, but we've got to have each other's backs.
Yeah, for sure.
If my significant other was talking to some chick or sliding up in her DMs, I would want to know too.
Yeah, for sure.
And then we can have a conversation. Be like, okay, I'm not comfortable with this.
Yeah.
Or, what's going on? Like, where's the problem?
Yeah. Yes. Where's the disconnect? So no, I totally agree. I don't like it. And I just think, like I said, technology has made this really weird on stuff like that. And it is, it is a symptom of like something's off in the relationship, something's not right.
Right.
And, like our grandpas were not sliding into people's DMs.
I would hope not.
They were like, if they were doing this, they were doing this or this, but like there wasn't this weird, weird in between where it's like, I just want you to flirt with me, not even in real life, just like in this one. Like, I've had dudes treat me like that online through my messages that will walk right past me in a crowd, and it's like, okay.
Because their wife is around.
That's exactly what it is. To like, oh, we're not best friends right now. Like, come here.
Let me pull up my DMs.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what you said.
I know you ate chicken last night. Yeah. So I really dislike that like weird in between. It doesn't require any risk. It doesn't require any. Like, even if you risk and do the wrong thing, I still think like at least you have some guts to it. Yeah. So
I understand that.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's talk about the small town. I love the small town. Sometimes. Sometimes it's something else. Dating and divorce in a small town is, it's a whole different level than what other people have to go through, I think.
Yes.
There are rumors, there are, I don't even know, I don't know how I went through it, I don't know how you went through it, but.
I think, oh gosh, and it's painful because it's people that you were at different points in your life you were very committed to, because it's not, there's a marriage and there's two big families on either side of that marriage, and there's lots of intermingling in that, and then there's a separation. And you know, one of the things that I actually like about myself, but is also a very painful thing about me, is I don't love halfway ever. Like, it's not hard for me to fall in love with people. Like, I genuinely, I don't need them to be perfect, so I'm okay with, like, when they have flaws, when they do things I disagree with. I expect that. We're humans. We should all, that's what makes life so vibrantly beautiful, is that we're different, and that has to mean that I'm not going to agree with everything you do.
But and so I still can love you.
Exactly. Right. Like, it's really easy for me to fall in love with people, and I'm not talking like romantic love. I just like all the kinds of love. Like, that's a really easy place for me to find myself. And so you get so connected to this family, you know, and family is in friends, family, the whole world you build together, and then it falls apart. You get a divorce, and everybody kind of falls to their spot. And I think one of the things that's being in a small town is so hard is how much of the awful things they say about you and that happen come back to you. Right. Like, my ex-husband can't go on the smallest date without someone instantly running it back to me, or what so-and-so said, or what so-and-so, to the point where I've had to have big boundaries with it, where it's like, listen, like, I like him, I want him to be successful, like, he's the father of my children, like, we're still friends, but no,
right.
Like, this needs
Please
to
don't
stop
come
now.
back and report to
me. And then people fill in gaps, and it's just human nature. My ex-husband and I had a role in this town, and people looked up to our marriage, and so what people will want to do is they want to bring a story that equals the size of what broke. So I know that's kind of a weird, I'm trying to think of a way to explain that. So like, someone tragically dies in their house one day, and it's so unexpected, and oh my gosh, and so we'll try to fill in this story that meets the size of the emotional experience we're having, when the truth is they might have just slipped in their shower and died. Like really tragic things happen for really small reasons all the time, but human nature wants to create a story equal to the size of the emotional experience we just had. Does that make sense? Yes. Yeah. So people do that in small towns too. Like, I have heard like 9 different reasons why I got a divorce.
You're like, and none of them are right.
Yeah, I the last one I heard, I actually haven't corrected the last couple, because I'm just like, it's okay.
Right. It really doesn't matter, right?
No.
And I don't know, correcting somebody may not even help anything.
No, and like, again, my goal is to be happy, and if people need to be wrong about me, that's part of it. Actually, I think that's part of you know, if you say you want to be happy, part of what you have to go through is letting people misunderstand you and misunderstand your story or completely mischaracterize you. Right. And that's okay. Like, it's okay.
Yeah.
So
we're gonna be the bad guy sometimes.
Yeah.
Wow.
And if you don't get offended by that, if you don't let that grab your emotions and trigger you, and now I have to have offense at this person because they said this, this, and this, but I give them space and time to grieve. Like, is it fair that other people need to grieve my marriage when I'm the one that's supposed to be grieving it? No, it's not fair, but life's not fair. Right. You know what I mean? But if I'll give them space, like, hey, they lost something too, you know, and they're gonna have an emotional reaction. If I give them that space, I've been really surprised by, in a year, 2 years, the friendships that come back, that are able to be repaired, that are different and new and reborn.
But that healing has taken place,
yes.
So they can come back.
Yeah, because I didn't choose to get offended when they were offended with me. Like, why wouldn't you try harder? Why wouldn't you do this? Why wouldn't you do that? Like, and I just was like, you know what? I love you. I'm not going to give you that explanation. I just need you to know, now I'm done.
Right.
This is where I stop. Right. I'm not going any further. And then I let them have their time to grieve. And grief is ugly and messy. and especially in a small town,
Yeah.
like we're all right on top of each other.
Yes. Working and related and married
Yes.
or divorced, like there's this big web
I
that's
know.
just like spread throughout the town. Everybody is connected somehow,
Yes.
and you can't get away from it.
Yeah. What was that game that like 9 Degrees of
Kevin
Kevin Bacon? Like I swear it's like, but in Round Mountain it's got to be smaller. It's like 3 degrees or something.
No, that is definitely.
There's a
definitely
lady
a thing.
I've come to love very dearly that I work out with every morning in the gym,
Mhm.
and it does not matter who. I hope she's listening. It does not matter who I mention. She's like, oh, that's my cousin.
Oh,
That's my
jeez.
uncle. I'm like, dear Lord. I'm obviously gonna be in your family one day. Like, if I
Right.
keep going this
We'll
way.
be
Yeah.
sisters. It's okay.
So-
And it's not like some weird, I don't know, like
No.
what do you call that when like family incest? It's
Yeah.
not incest.
No.
Maybe it would be down the road, but it's not incest.
There's just not a ton of us. And then there's like these couple founding families that
Mhm.
have just been out here for,
Forever.
yeah, and it's not necessarily that they're all blood related. It's like,
No.
you know, so-and-so married this person, married that person, like, and they're not even from here, but now all of a sudden they're part of the, you know, group,
Right.
or they're connected somehow,
Right.
you know,
Right.
so,
That's
yeah.
something you can only understand if you experience it, for
it
sure.
is wild. It's so
Do you
wild.
plan on staying here? What's your plan there?
Do I plan on staying here? Yes.
I mean, your kids are, I think
My
your
kids
youngest
is 7.
7, yeah.
So for the foreseeable future, I'm here. Yeah.
Okay.
I would like to start getting out of town more. Like I just I kind of hermited up this last winter,
Yeah.
and it's been good for me, just really focusing on the gym and that kind of stuff. But I'm ready to start like going out. Like I remember one time you talking about, you know, I'm gonna rent an apartment, something out of town. I think I might look into doing something like that.
Oh yeah.
Just to have someplace else.
Well, I don't know how you guys do your custody, but we do 1 week on, 1 week off.
That's what we do too.
And I love that.
Yeah.
It was really hard at first to be away from my kids for
Yeah.
that long, but now that they're older, more self-sufficient,
Mhm.
and things are steady, I'm like, dude, this is actually kind of nice. 'Cause
It
that
is.
1 week off, I get to go and take care of me,
Yeah.
and then that 1 week with them, I get to take care of them, and it's focused. It's not like I'm halfway here, halfway there.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. The transition days, I think, because I'm a creature of habit. I journal.
And kids are too.
Yeah, I journal every morning. I go to the gym. I drink my water. It's specific. I can literally. It's why I can bodybuild, because I can eat the same food
Same.
every single day.
Same.
It's so I'm a creature of habit. So when my days where I get my kids, like even then, like I have this transition moment where I almost kind of panic for a second because.
Mhm.
Like it's throwing me out of my habit. Now, don't get me wrong. I would much rather, don't hear what I'm not saying.
Right.
But I'm just trying to be real. Like that throws me off for a second. That's the one bump I still kind of have.
Mhm.
And then when they leave, that first night that they're gone.
Yeah.
So those are kind of bumps for me. But they are older, and so it's not like I'm having to say goodbye to my 18-month-old or
Oh
something.
my
You know
God.
what I mean?
I
Like I
cannot
can imagine. Yeah. So and my oldest son is actually 18,
Yeah.
and he comes and goes as he wants to.
He's an adult,
So
yeah.
yeah.
That makes it nice.
Yeah.
Can't believe you have a man.
I know.
A man
I do.
child.
He's such a good man child.
Yeah.
He really is. Just
All
a
your
good
kids,
kid.
I think,
Oh.
you've done an
Thank you.
amazing job. You and your ex too. Like, they're good humans,
They are good.
and they're all
humans.
so different.
I know. You
love
would
that.
think after 5 you might get like one repeat in
Right.
there, but
Nope.
like absolutely not.
And you've given them the space and the freedom to just be their own person and do what they love
Yeah.
and find what they love. Like, find who they are.
Yeah, and that's just such a how cool is it that we get to be like, I know I'm a big fan of taking all the little things and making them big. So is motherhood rough and exhausting? And yes. It is.
Definitely.
It has driven me to my breaking point multiple times. And I'm not even talking about when they're little. Like
Yeah.
I have a preteen girl right now that
Oh, man.
oh my god,
Oh my gosh. I know.
she is me and I am her. And all of a sudden, every time I was so confused when people were like, "You're just a lot," I'm like, Yes, I am. Now I get it.
Now I see. I
I
have to
love
handle
it.
this, girl.
Yeah, I love it. I don't want her to be less, but
Right.
I do not bring a little bit to the table.
And when you start butting heads, oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it's just such a cool privilege to like be entrusted with a human like that. You know what I mean? Like it is by far my favorite thing I've done in life is become a mom, and how I've got to like learn to love myself by loving my children. You know, it heals so much inside of you when you really are devoted to, I want to do this well and I want to do right by them. Like that starts by doing right by yourself. You have to do right by yourself to do right by them.
Right.
And like you can't just be a really good mom and be ignoring and betraying yourself the whole time. It doesn't work like that. And it's healed my relationship with my own parents and all that stuff. So it's just really cool. I love being a mom.
You made a post a while ago, I think it was, where it was like, these kids are not mine. I have them for just a little bit and then I have to send them back. Like that I still remember that one like so vividly. I think we lose that. We think that these kids, these are my kids.
And
no,
they're not.
They're really not. Like they're their own people. We just get the privilege of raising them.
Yeah.
Doing the best we can.
I know, you know, I in between my first and my second born, I was pregnant with twins. And they came early and they only lived a couple days and they passed away, and it just was such a eye-opening moment for me. I was really young too, like really young. It was 22, 23, and realizing that, you know, this, because first I had my firstborn and like I said, totally devoted to him, loved him, he became my whole world. And then, you know, how much more perfect then I was going to have these twins. And like I had this perfect little plan, like all my kids were going to graduate before I was even 40. That didn't work out. But so I had these, you know, then I was going to have these twins, and I was so excited. And then to lose them like that, and just really realizing like what a privilege it is to love this deeply and to get to be a part of raising another human that's not yours to keep. And that like, and I feel like I can put so much pressure on moms. Like some of it sucks, like some of it's not fun. Not and it would be weird if you were like every diaper change, like this is such a privilege. Like no, don't put that kind of pressure on yourself, because sometimes it just is like it's bullshit and I hate it and I need a break from these kids. So that exists as well. But like just how impermanent it is, and they're not mine. And so it honestly, it shook me to the foundation of how I even raise my kids. Like something as simple as like I need to raise my kids in a way that they understand that life teaches lessons, and I need to do that in a way that supports life teaching lessons, and I need to step back and not be the enforcer of their lives, because I'm not going to be there when they're 19 every day. I'm not going to be there when they're 25. I'm not going to be there at 30 behind a closed door while they're having a conversation with their wife, their spouse, whoever it is. Like I need them to start to figure out how life works, and I need to be their supporter in that, because they belong to something way bigger than me. They're not mine, and I don't get to follow them around and hold their hand. And that's, you know, it's scary. It's really scary. So,
and I'm sure your son's probably going away to college next year, right?
Yeah.
And that's going to be a new adventure for him and for you to let go.
I know. Like he's so grown up. Like I would be lying if I was like, I'm worried or anything. Like he is definitely, I feel like, oh God. Like I feel like we switched somewhere in there and he started raising me. Like he's just a good man. Like right now he's planning, he's just a cool kid. He's planning a trip to the mountains. He's been reading Thoreau. I'm saying his name wrong. He's been reading Walden. It's like this philosopher of poetry. And lots of undertones and where Judah, my son, is at right now, of like making his own way in nature and finding himself there and kind of walking away from the industrialized world to like find who he is when he has to survive on his own. Like there's just this philosophy of like, you think you need so much to be happy when actually happiness is found in the struggle of survival. And he's really big into this whole concept right now. So he's like planning out this whole trip where he's gonna go get lost in the mountains for a while.
Oh my gosh,
and like,
I love that.
yeah, he's like he's the coolest kid. Like he wakes up every morning. I wish I had his discipline. He plays his bass, he plays his piano, and then he sits on the back porch with like a little cup of. He doesn't drink coffee. Sometimes it's just hot water, but something warm because it's cold right now.
Yeah.
And watches the sunrise and like does his journaling and stuff. So he's just an amazing human, and he has these deep thoughts, and he calls me on my shit all the time. Like everybody wants to raise an independent thinker until you've got one, and they're just like constantly holding this mirror up to
like,
you.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah. Like, listen, I'm comfortable with this dysfunction at this point. Like, leave me alone. Like,
Oh my goodness.
so he's just a cool kid. So, like, I'm sad at that there'll be an absence. I'm sad for his absence, but I have full faith in the fact that he knows how to struggle and overcome things, and I think that's, it's a lot more simple than we give it credit for. Like, he knows how to face challenges, and he knows how to get disappointed and get his feelings hurt, and he knows how to struggle and keep going. And that's really, like, when I started raising kids, I wanted them to have value for the sun rising and for flowers and frogs, and to wonder and ask questions and to have some grit. And I think, we overcomplicate it. Like, and that's it. And he's got those things, so I'm really excited to see.
I love that
where
you
he
put
goes.
all of that like before education. Like,
Yeah.
so many people are like, go get your education, go do this, and you're like, go learn and be a man.
Dude,
Do things wrong and
No, I
find yourself.
might be actually, I don't know. This is like, none of this has been proven yet, but I'm a big fan of like finding beauty in small things. Like, we are living in a dopamine drenched, addicted society.
Yes.
And people don't know how to sit with their pain. People don't know how to sit with their fears. Teach your kids how to sit with you got to do it first. Can't give you what I don't have. Figure out how to sit with your fear, figure out how to sit with your pain, sit with it, don't drink it away, don't sleep with people to get it, be quiet. Like, sit with yourself. Teach your kids how to do that. Like, teach them how to have some grit. Like, you know what? Yeah, you get kicked in the face. That freaking happens, and it's not gentle and it's not forgiving. Like, death comes at inopportune times and nothing's promised, and then you gotta wake up the next day and you have to go do stuff still. And so I just think those things are so much more important. And when you sit with your own pain, when you sit with your own feelings, you're able to find beauty in sunrises, because your brain's not just constantly drenched in dopamine from food and sex and drugs and whatever it is, TikTok, whatever your drug of choice is. Like, all of a sudden you can feel a spring breeze, and all of a sudden you can see beautiful things, and they have this great effect on your brain. And I wanted my children to have that, and I wanted them to have poetry, and I wanted them to have beauty, and then I'm not worried about it. Like, our education system, like, and I don't want people to hear what I'm not saying. I love teachers.
Yes.
I dearly love teachers. I think they're some of the coolest people I know. But our education system is broken right now. Our education system is not based on teaching people how to learn. And that's the ultimate skill you want to give someone.
Right.
Is I know how to learn. Because
Not take a test.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what kind of world you're preparing. You think our parents knew this is what our world would look like in 30 years? No, we don't know what world we're sending them into. Like, we don't know. We just need them to know how to learn and how to have grit and all that other stuff.
Right.
He is super academically driven.
Well, and your kids are all homeschooled, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know why, because I have like been trying to teach him how to rail against the man since, but he is like full on board with the whole academic everything. He loves it. I don't know why, but so when it was first like, should he go to college? What should he do? I was a big fan of like, take a year off and go be hungry in Europe. Like, yes. That's what I wanted him to do.
Go see a different world.
Yeah, I'm like, pack a backpack and go be like, go work at a cafe somewhere, like get a work visa somewhere and go be hungry and sleep in hostels and do like be dirty, like go do that. But he, you know, and he has worked so hard at school, so I can totally understand why he's got a really clear path in front of him if he chooses to keep walking on it because of his own hard work.
That's
so
awesome.
Yeah.
And what does he want to do?
He's not positive right now, so he's gonna go to UNR.
Okay.
And he just got accepted into honors college.
Oh
and
my gosh.
I know, like he's all excited. So he's got a bend towards engineering, so I think eventually it's either that or the medical field are the two he bounces between. He really likes the idea of being an ER doctor, which I'm like, I get stressed out
just thinking about it. Huh?
He really is good in emergency situations.
Okay.
And I just am like, you know, there's fight, flight, freeze or fawn.
Yeah.
Like I either fawn or freeze every time. It's like I have the worst reaction. So like it stresses me out to even think about. But he likes that kind of stuff. So.
Wow. I mean, that's the kind of ER doctors we want, are the ones who can handle it, right?
Yeah.
That's
just
awesome.
Talking about it brings my anxiety up.
You're like, oh
no, absolutely not. But
at least he won't be too far away too. That'll be good.
Yeah, no, he's just in Reno, so I tease him because he's gonna stay in the dorms that me and Monica, my coworker, are gonna crash at his place. It's gonna have to put up with us. So.
We're gonna come visit. Don't worry.
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
What is your being a mom is a trip?
Yes.
What has been like your having not like the best childhood? You said. How did you learn how to be such a good mom?
Yeah. One, so I say I didn't have a great childhood because there was just rampant addiction in my family that just tore really good people to shreds. Like I will always have a really special place in my heart for people that struggle with addiction because one, I can struggle with addiction. Like I definitely have an addictive personality. I come from a long line of addicts, and almost every person that I've dearly loved in my life has struggled with addiction to some degree or another. And I'm not talking about like your normal American addicts. I think like most people, whether they want to admit it to themselves, I know Russell Brand's like a controversial figure, but he writes this book and it's his take on the 12 steps.
Okay.
And he brings up this concept in there of like, I was blessed to have an addiction that forced me to do something with it. Like I think there's a whole bunch of people out here that are just addicted enough that they never have to look at themselves.
Oh wow.
And so he had an addiction that drove him to destroy his entire life.
Right.
And like actually that's kind of a blessing because once you've done that, you have to look at yourself in the mirror and you have to say, you know, what am I hiding from? What are my fears? What is driving this forward? Whereas like most people have just enough addiction to stay mediocre and angry and bitter.
And they don't have to look at themselves at all.
But they can still go to work.
Yeah.
And they can still like somewhat sustain relationships.
Right.
Like they're not fulfilling, but they're there.
And they're probably not healthy either.
Yeah. No, definitely not healthy, definitely not fulfilling, but like it checks the box, right? It's like our education system checks the box.
Right,
like it's done.
It's good
you
enough.
know, good enough. And so, you know, some people are blessed to have absolute raging addictions that tear through their whole lives and force them to those are the addicts I hung out with.
Okay.
So like there's a difference. My dad dealt with addiction his whole life, but he loved me very, very much. And he definitely, you know, we talk about on your Reclaiming You page,
on the group,
the different types of love. Like
yes.
he definitely brought an unconditional fatherly love. Like I knew there was nothing I could do in this whole world that would cause my dad to turn his back on me. Like I knew at any moment I could call on my dad and he would change his whole life and set it up and put a house together and move me and my kids in, no questions asked, nothing. Like my dad was just my person and he told me stories and read me books. And so I did have this example in my life of someone that was very nurturing. He was very nurturing to me, you know. In Nevada, we tend to have this like masculine man that has very little in touch with their feminine
emotions
at all,
yes.
You know, which I'm not saying I'm like, you have to be feminine. Like I very much am a fan of a masculine man. Like I know you asked like beards, like yes, beards, flannels, like dirty hands, like I'm in. I'm like, yes. Like, anyways, I'm gonna make myself blush. But so like I love love the masculine, but then he was very masculine, but he also was really in touch with his feminine. So he wasn't afraid to talk about emotions. He would write me letters. He read me poetry.
Oh, man.
Like, he told me stories. Like, he had really high expectations of anybody that I dated as far as how they treated me emotionally. It was literally like the test he would put out in front of me was like, how do you feel when you're with this person? Not like, you know, are they going somewhere? My dad didn't care about that stuff. Like, do they have their life together? Like, how do you feel? Like, what experience are you having? So he was really good at just kind of like intuitively being a dad to a girl, which was cool.
Yeah, I don't feel like that's very common.
No, but yeah. Let me tell you, to go from a dad like that than trying to date, you're like, this is brutal.
I know. I think, who was I talking to? I think I was commenting on one of Carissa's posts, and she was talking about the dating world. And I'm like, you're asking the wrong questions. You're not supposed to be asking what's my favorite color. Like, what are you most afraid of?
Yes.
Like, tell me what your like deepest, darkest secrets are. Like, those are the conversations we should be having dating. And I don't know. I don't know a lot of men that can go there, but I don't know if a lot of women can go there either.
It's so true.
Be honest with themselves.
It's so true. And I think in the way, like, you know, and I know there's lots of different takes on what the feminine brings and what the masculine brings, but I honestly think, like, women in so many ways abdicated their role as the feminine force in life. We let go of our intuition. We step back from bringing any emotional standards to situations, and it shows in us, it shows in men.
Right.
Like, and I can definitely point to in society where masculine people have, you know,
there's been a failure on both sides.
Yes, absolutely. But, so I'm not trying to point fingers. I know this could be like a hot topic. I'm just saying this one specific area. Yeah. And so, just to have someone in your life that you can have those deep conversations with, that you can feel and have an understanding around emotion is a rare thing anymore. And honestly, it's the reason why I don't have a ton of friends, because I like my interest level in having shallow conversations. I actually had someone call me on it one time and be like, if you say you actually love people and you value people, then you'll have to learn how to value the fact that some people feel connected through small talk.
Do they really though? Or they just don't know?
That's how I felt about it too. I was like,
I really just want to talk about the weather and sports. I don't know.
I don't know. Like, why would you want to talk about the weather when there's like, have you experienced life?
See, I go like the other way. When people are at the bar, I'm like, what are you working on this year? What are your goals? Like, tell me what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's the stuff I want to talk about.
And I want to know, like, what's your deepest fears? What brings you alive? Like, what is it when you're doing that just, like, you know, you can see in someone's eyes when they feel alive. Yes. And, like, what is it you do? Like, and I don't care what it is. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't have to be like mine.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So my dad had all those attributes. So he set a really high standard for me. And he also dealt with addiction. And so occasionally, every now and again, he would go off the rails and I'd lose him for a couple of years, you know, which brings tons of damage and trauma and all this stuff. You know, I heard a phrase that just stopped me in my tracks just a little bit ago, and it's like, you know, if you weren't fed love off of a spoon, you learn to lick it off of knives.
Oh, jeez.
And I feel like that's kind of where life left me was, I started to learn to equate love and pain, because they always had been hand in hand
together. Right?
Yeah. And now there is I could go in a whole nother direction with that, but I'm not saying love always feels good. There's different types of love. There's, like you said, agape love. That's that forever, it's unconditional. That's the love that you receive from a parent.
Yes.
It's unconditional. Now, romantic love is not unconditional.
Correct.
And it's because it's the love that, called the universe, whatever you want to call it, whatever your higher power is, uses to level you up. And there has to be some resistance to cause that to happen. You have to learn to resist your ego. You have to learn to resist some of your more selfish, broken instincts, right?
Right.
So it's not the agape love, it's a different kind of love.
And I think romantic love does come with conditions.
Yes, and it should.
Yeah. If you
Yes.
treat me like an asshole, like, I'm probably not going to love you anymore.
Exactly, yes.
But if my kids treat me like an asshole, I'm still going to love them. Like,
Exactly.
they came out of my womb. These are
Yeah.
my little offspring.
Yeah, so that kind of love, agape love, like the eternal, there's nothing you can do that'll change. That's the love that gives someone the courage to do the brave things. And then the romantic love, like there's a reason like our kids come to us and they feel just that let down, that peace, that like, you know what I mean? Like I'm safe here. It's because that's the love that you're experiencing in that moment. Now, when you come to a romantic partner, you have this huge biological like reaction, like your brain is flooded with things, and it's because this is going to require something from you, and your body responds to that. Your body's like, okay, let's do this. This is a place where we level each other up, where we grow together. So is there pain in this? Yes.
Right.
But now there's pain because you are fighting your own ego, and because you're learning to get your feelings hurt, because you're learning to apologize. Not pain because you're licking love off a knife.
There's a difference.
There's a difference.
Right.
So if you're just always in pain, like probably something's wrong.
Right.
You know, like,
I do like how you explain that though, like how you level up through pain, through that resistance and conflict even.
Yeah.
And
So
learning how to work through it together.
It's not always going to feel nice, and it shouldn't. Like it should feel like resistance. Like some parts of you suck. Like and you just have to be okay with that. Like sometimes we're selfish, and sometimes we're shitty, and sometimes our ego doesn't. Like I don't want to say sorry.
Right.
Like and I don't want to care about you right now. Like you hurt my feelings or whatever. And it's calling us to be more than that, to be better than that. And when you do that well, the whole world, your children, all these other loves benefit from it, because it's literally what drives you to level up. But to go to this love and constantly think it's just here to make me feel good is wrong and broken, and you'll just use people and hurt them if that's what you think.
Really interesting, yeah.
So this love, absolutely you feel good, and then especially when you've invested time in it and you've done it well and you've been faithful to it, and you bring a certain level of humility to it, like this love like absolutely can build you into the person that you want to be. But it is through resistance, and it is through the death of the ego, you know. And that egos are powerful things,
and they're necessary.
Yes,
they're necessary.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
they're necessary evil that we have to. They keep us in check, and we have to keep it in check. Like, dude, during like our plant medicine journey, we did the ayahuasca, and that's supposed to be like the ego death. I didn't have the ego death, but I've heard that it's like the worst thing ever.
Really?
Yeah, and I don't know. I'm afraid to do it again because I'm afraid that
like I wanted to die, but like gently.
Just wither away.
Yeah, just slowly.
Not this like catastrophic death.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
God.
I think a lot of people, ego, you know, it depends on what your translation of what ego is. But to me, when I say ego, I mean the part of ourselves that wants to say, I've arrived and I'm enough already, and I don't have any humility. You know, it's that, oh God, this is a whole nother rabbit trail, like that, just that idea of like spiritual materialism, like when people call their ego their intuition, you know, like that kind of a mindset, and just realizing like actually true spiritual maturity is learning to let that part of you slowly get quieter. And now humility is not walking around saying, you know, oh, I'm not enough.
Right.
And, oh, this actually, humility is a lot of strength restrained. It's me actually understanding my words are $100 bills and not pennies. My ego will throw words at a situation and they become less and less valuable every single time. But strength restrained knows when I say words, they mean something. So it's $100 bill. Like, I'm not just going to throw a million words at this, because when I say something, it's going to mean something. And I don't have to respond to every voice that speaks to me, you know?
And sometimes that silence is just so much more, it's so much more like, feels better inside.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. And that took me a long time too, like figuring out not every text deserves a response. Not every message or post on Facebook deserves a response. Like, okay.
I could tell you 8 times in the last month that I failed just off the top of my head. Yeah, like I gotten better? So much better. I failed?
There's still those days where you're in this mood and you're like, this motherfucker, I'm gonna just take him out.
It. Like we are having this conversation. Yeah.
Yes.
So
I totally get that.
Yeah. So anyway, so back to like my dad loved me really well, and then I met my son, and I feel like, you know, we learn from people on a cellular level way before we learn on through words. Like, you know, we don't even have, like we've already discussed, we don't even have all the words to describe the experiences happening inside of us. So what you are deep in here, like, is what you're giving to your kids, and they are experiencing that on a cellular level way before you give them any words, right?
Yes.
And so I think there was some just intuitive love that I got from my dad, that he didn't always do well, you know what I mean, but he was human, but he did love me when he was present, and there he did very, very well with it. And so I got that from him. And then my mom is a badass. Like she is a super cool lady, started her own business back in the 80s. You know, that was not common. Like she struggled through all sorts of really hard situations, and she has got a backbone of steel. And so I think I got that on a cellular level from my mom too. So I have a really gentle thing I got from my dad, but a very much like, I won't actually back out of a situation. Like, I'll stand my ground.
Okay.
I might not fight and scream and yell because I was raised by a hippie, but I'm not going to be easily moved.
Right.
So I like everybody will just wonder like, why is she still standing here? And then 2 years later, all of a sudden, like, it'll have worked out because I just didn't back down, you know?
Right.
And that's that grit again that I love so much. Yeah. So I got those 2 attributes from my parents that I'm very grateful for. And then I had my son, and I knew those 2 attributes were great, and he brought them to life in a way I'd never experienced before, but also I knew that wasn't enough, and so I just threw myself into every kind of parenting idea, technique, anything out there, and I landed on Love and Logic. So I actually became certified to teach Love and Logic. It's a parenting technique, and I love it dearly. Like, it helped me so much. Basically, anytime I saw someone, I still do it now. Like I do this with women that I see, like you, or different women that I see that I consider powerful or walking in their strength. Like, I'll just kind of sit and just watch, like, tell me what it is you do that has caused you to walk with grace in the midst of so much hatred and frustration and fear in a world that wants to, you know, a world that sets itself on fire and then cries that it's hot. Why are you choosing to walk with grace? And why are you choosing to believe that there's good out there? Like, tell me. And I started doing that with parenting things at that time. Like, I met a man named Danny Silk, and he was the one that introduced me to Love and Logic, and everything he did, every book he put out. So he put out a book called Unpunishable.
Okay.
It does have like a religious undertone to it, but if you just like, because I don't care. Like, listen, I want to look at the camera. I just realized,
listen here.
I'm gonna preach for a second. I don't care what you call your universal spiritual thing.
Yeah.
You don't have to say the word water to get wet, right? Like, you know when you're wet.
Right.
Like, and there's lots of different words for water. Yes. Okay. So I don't care what you call it, but if you just insert your belief system into this, because they're all really wildly common, or have a lot in common, I should say. And you read this book, and it's just basically like breaking our addiction to punishment to help people learn to grow. It is phenomenal. So I just glommed on to anybody that I saw. Like, listen, I feel like I've got a decent foundation in that I love him very, very much. I need some practical tips into how to do that. And so I read every book. I went to every class. I did everything I knew how to do. I landed on Love and Logic. It actually really mirrored the way my dad raised me. And it's very much just like I bring that unconditional love.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in fact, I work really hard to disarm all the buttons that are inside me so my kids can't find them and push them and make me dance to make themselves feel powerful every now and again. And then I bring that unconditional love, and I let life teach you lessons, and I don't save you from them. So, you, like, what's something kids do? Like, you spray paint the side of a building, right, and you get caught, and now you have community service. Like, I'm so bummed out for you. Dang it. Oh, man. Like, oh, that sucks. Well, I love you. Do you want me to pack you lunch? Like, but I'm not going to save you from this. Yeah. Like, this is what, so when I was a kid, again, I thought I was the coolest hippie from the time I was like 10 years old, moving forward, right?
You are a cool hippie.
Thank you. I think so. But I was very much convinced of it back then. And so I was like 13 years old. Me and my dad and my stepsister are going to go on this canoe trip. And so we're down by kind of like Ely, Minnesota, which that probably means very little to anybody. It's a little bit further south, but above Lake Superior. And we're going to take these canoes and we're going to go all the way up to the Boundary Waters, which is where Canada meets the U.S.
Okay.
Beautiful. Oh, it's one of the most beautiful places on the whole earth. And you get there by go on your canoe for a while, then you throw your canoe on your shoulders and you portage it and you walk across dry land and you throw your canoe in at the next spot and then you go further, right?
Okay.
Well, me and my stepsister, who are like, we've been earthing since we were like, I know everybody thinks it's cool now.
Oh, like grounding?
Yeah, okay. Like, yeah, walking around barefoot.
Yeah.
We decided we're gonna do this whole trip barefoot, right?
Oh, Lord.
And so my dad, like, of all the reactions a parent could have, was like, cool. Sounds like fun, guys. And like,
he didn't tell you no.
No.
Oh, okay.
He took his canoe and we had our own canoe.
Okay.
And we're going like 10 miles or more.
Oh my God.
And we were on like mile 1. And me and Bobby are both like, oh shit. Like, this was a bad idea.
Oh.
Things like, and I told someone that story and they were like, I bet your dad had shoes in his bag. No, he did not save me from this. Like, he let life teach me, and he didn't condemn me. He didn't make me feel dumb.
Okay.
He was like, hey, you guys are pretty tough. Like, he just was if you could meet it, he just was steady all the time. Happy, big smile on his face, would carry his canoe and he'd wait for us patiently. We come home with raw feet.
Oh my
but
God.
I promise you, I never did that again. It was never this power struggle. I wasn't upset with him. He wasn't upset with me. He just let life help me learn why shoes are a really cool invention.
Maybe for the first half mile, you're good. Do your earthen thing.
Yeah.
Bring your
so,
shoes.
yeah. Like, why are we fighting with our kids that it's cold outside? Like, they have skin. They'll figure it out. Like, don't worry about it. Like, let them get cold. Like, if they don't want to wear their jackets, like, stop making everything
a battle, right?
So often we parent from our ego. Well, I don't want the neighbors to see my kid without a jacket. Like, they're not their kids. Like, don't worry about it. Like, let your kid go outside and figure out why jackets are cool. So.
Yeah, and that's a thing for, like, middle schoolers. Like,
I know.
We're just going to wear sandals and no jacket.
Yeah.
Okay.
My daughter wears slippers everywhere she goes.
Dude,
right
now. Where was she yesterday? She went riding out the RZR. I'm like, you're really going in slippers? Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Her and her friends all bought matching slippers even. And they all wear matching slippers everywhere they go. Yeah. I'm like, I don't care. Like, I was a weird kid. Like,
that was one thing with my last podcast with Monique Davis. We talked about parenting. And she said, I call her the teenage whisperer. She's like, parents need to pick their battles.
Yeah.
Like, not everything is worth a fight. If their floor if their rooms are dirty, like the floors are a disaster, cool. It's their room, but what are your boundaries out here? Tell them, whatever your boundaries are. No food, no water, whatever in their room, but like, that's their space.
Yeah, give them some autonomy. Yeah. Like, again, going back to that idea, they're not yours.
Right.
They are their own person. They need emotional autonomy. Humans need freedom. The second you start impeding, impeding on someone's freedom, on their autonomy, you get the worst version of who they are.
Right.
Like, you just do. They will.
They're fighting back.
If you right now started coming at me, you're going to get the worst version of who I am. Right. Or if suddenly you were like, you need to wear your jacket, and you need to do this, and you need to be like, we're not going to be friends, I will not like being around you. Right. But we treat our kids like that. And rather than, there's an intuitive, excuse me, I can't say the word now.
Intuitive?
Yeah, ness.
Oh.
With a ness at the end. Intuitiveness about being alive that we need to let them like come into alignment with. Like, so I struggled with my son. One of my sons, their room was so bad. And I realized I was crossing that line now where I was not picking my battles. I went in there one day and I just started like rage cleaning, which is not in character for me. But like, I was like, done. Well, I found they get like owl pellets to dissect and stuff. Yeah. So I found a bunch of owl pellets like in a random place in his room, and I'm like, is there literally owl shit just like in here? I was like, I'm done.
It's for science, Mom.
Yeah, I can't live like this.
Oh.
And so I started cleaning his room, and I saw it come across his face that I just put a big heap of shame on him, and it just made my heart stop. And I was like, oh, I need to, more important than this room is that I protect our connection. Right. And so I stepped back and I gave him that autonomy of like, if this is what you want, but I also like, he started sleeping on the couch, and I'm like, why are you sleeping on the couch? You know, like, you have a bedroom.
Yeah.
I love you, but go in your room. What are you doing? And I didn't make a big deal about it. And he's like, oh, it's just not very nice in there. I'm like, so you don't feel really nice when you're in your room? And I just gave him some space to start feeling like, hey, that's not really a welcoming, nice space. But I didn't shame him. I didn't hone in on it. Just like we would have passing conversations. And then all of a sudden one day he just like created this little plan and started cleaning his room. Because he was having the experience of, I don't really like sleeping on the couch, but my room I'm not comfortable in there. Like, that doesn't feel good to me. Right. And so, and he just, like, now he keeps his room clean, and it took nothing from me. I let him have some autonomy, and he has good standards for what love and health look like in his life, and he recognized that as not lining up to it. So, you know, I don't know if that'll work with all my kids, if they'll all, you know, they're all so different, but just stepping back and giving him space to really decide. You can't even decide if you like something or you don't like something when someone's, you know, that hot and heavy into what you're doing. So.
Right. Telling you, and that's the thing, like creating the children that we think they should be, or that we wanted to be as a kid too. Like, that's a whole different issue too.
Yeah. Projecting onto them. Yeah. And you just cannot they're not yours. They're not yours. They're not you, and they're not yours. And if you have set yourself up to believe that they will not disappoint you, they will not lie to you, they will not make huge messes, that's on you. Right. Like, you're old enough now to understand humans are humans. And there's even studies that have been done that show that kids go through a phase of like basically trying on lying tend to be healthier, because it's not that they're necessarily trying on lying, it's that they're figuring out how humans work. And they're doing this, like, lying is kind of this like intuitive thing where you're like doing like an emotional dance with someone. Right. No, I don't condone.
Yeah, you're not condoning lying.
I'm not condoning lying, but what I'm saying is like they're experimenting with the emotional dance of being human, and that requires intelligence. And so it's a good sign, you know, like your kids are going to disappoint you. They're going to do things you don't understand. And, you know, if you want them to be academic, they're going to probably spend some time living on the beach in a van. And if you want them to live on the beach in a van, they're going to be academic. They're going to go to school. So.
Good job, Gina. Yeah. It's too funny. Awesome. The last thing I wanted to talk to you about was we did boudoir session.
Yes.
A few weeks ago. Which
it was so fun.
Was amazing. Like,
it was great.
Killed it. What was your experience with that? Like, why did you want to do it, and what did you get out of it?
Yeah. So for me, I feel like I have like kind of a different reason for wanting to do it. I think just being raised as a female in this society, and then I've tended to like be with like more jealous partners throughout my life, is that it was almost like I wanted an experience of taking back my sexuality for myself. Like, I want autonomy over my own sexuality. Like, this is not for your benefit, nor is it for your harm. This is mine. Right. and I fully possess it, and I will place it where I will, when I please to, how I want to. It literally doesn't have anything to do with another human being on this earth but mine. Like, you know, like our sexual feminine is this powerful power. When you learn to tap into that and you learn to be comfortable with her, like that is a powerful thing inside of us. And I was, you know, I had so I had the hippie dad over here, and then I had a very religious side to my family over here, and so there was lots of shame, and there was lots of that mindset of like, you know, careful what you do because you don't want to cause boys to XYZ.
Right.
You know,
it's your fault if they.
Exactly. Yeah. And so it makes you afraid of that part of yourself, and it doesn't belong to you when it's phrased like that. Like, my sexuality has always belonged to men, and then I have to be really careful because when they're around me and they're experiencing it, I control them because of it. And it's like such a sick way of, you know what I mean, viewing it. And I just wanted an experience where it's like, actually, no. And I think it goes back to like way back to what we were talking about, like, misunderstand me, do whatever you want to, but this is me and this is mine.
Right.
And I will, you know, I will fully possess it and fully own it. Like, I have autonomy here. You don't get to tell me where and how to place it. And that was like such a freeing feeling. Like, this is my sexuality. This is my thing. And it is powerful. It's fucking scary. You should be scared.
It's so terrifying to be naked.
Yeah, like, you guys should worry. Like, I hope you're doing your work over there,
right,
because this is a lot, and I'm not afraid of it anymore. And if you are, that's on you, you know. Right. And so just taking it back for myself, like, this, I really wanted that experience, and then I had a blast doing it too. Like,
it was so much fun.
It was really fun, yeah. So it was actually a lot like this. I just didn't have pants on.
This time you're fully dressed.
Yeah. So, but it was really fun.
It was a good time.
Yeah, you asked good questions and you set a great environment to help me get comfortable, and I was very comfortable, actually.
Oh,
so
thanks.
Yeah,
I'm glad you said yes, because you were one of my first few, and I was like, okay, like, first one at my house, like, let's get this going. Okay, but I mean, you did so good.
Thank you.
Natural.
It was a blast. It was really fun. So
thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So easy. Like, you just are so well spoken and good with words.
Thank you.
I'm waiting for that book to come out.
Yeah, one of these days. It's on the list. It'll happen. So.
All right. Thank you guys for checking out this episode. We'll see you on the next one. Fabulous.
Hey.
Oh, it hurts my ears.
Yeah, I know, with the hat.
You're like, my head.